Hey everybody, how are you? This is Jim Prusek from the Pain PT. Good to see you guys today. Again, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. It helps the channel to grow and reach more people. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety. And anxiety, again, is something I've spoken about before, but I want to revisit it again because I feel like it's one of the most common causes and predictors and producers of symptoms in the body. We call somatic symptoms, or what's known as somatic anxiety or health anxiety. And that a large number of people, a large majority of people that I work with, when I see them and I diagnose them, they're actually having anxiety. And this anxiety can produce a whole host of different symptoms in the body, a whole host of them, all the way from your head to your feet. It's not just a panic attack. People think of anxiety as creating panic attacks in the chest, heart palpitations, shortness of breath. Yes, those things can occur. But in addition to those things, any symptom can be produced by anxiety because the purpose of the anxiety is to protect you, is to make you feel scared, to make you feel worried, to make you be concerned. Okay, so anxiety is a protective measure from your limbic brain. And so it can use your body as a way to show its intention, okay, to protect you, to make you scared, make you concerned, to make you focus on the symptom. So you stay in a anxious and what's called hypervigilant state. So any symptom can be caused by anxiety once it's been ruled out to not be a medical, organic, or what we call physical or structural condition, meaning it's not caused by something local in your body that's producing it. Okay, so anxiety is produced by the brain. Again, trickles down through your autonomic nervous system. Think fight, flight, freeze reactions into your body, causing these reactions that many people then have another level of anxiety about, a level of fear about. So many people have what I call the double anxiety or the secondary or even tertiary anxiety. They worry about the anxiety itself. So this thing can really snowball in people to where maybe there was an initial shot of anxiety the person felt, and they felt it through a somatic anxiety symptom. They worried about the symptom being something more. Then they worried about the fact that they're anxious about the symptom. So this thing can really get out of hand for a lot of people. Now, again, because it's protective, because it comes from deep in your limbic brain, you're not going to be able to stop this. You will not. Nobody can stop this. So we don't put our energy on trying to stop any of these anxiety productions. What we do need to understand is some things about anxiety and how we can respond to the anxiety when it occurs. Because too many people are getting hijacked by their anxiety. They're getting overwhelmed. And what they're doing is they're listening to it, they're believing it as being true, and they're following it, or they become the anxiety. So, one of the things we need to learn to do is step out of the anxiety and see it for what it is, to understand that that's what it is. That's what you're experiencing in your body is a health anxiety symptom, or what's called a somatic anxiety symptom. It is not dangerous. It's not harmful, but it feels that way. It feels threatening. It feels uncomfortable. It feels scary. It feels like it needs your attention. Okay, all these things that we do, and these things that we do reinforce the symptom, but what they're really doing is reinforcing the anxiety. So let's go over today a couple of these facets of anxiety, or what we call a couple of the mechanisms of how anxiety works in your system, so you can learn to recognize this for yourself and learn to step out of this anxiety. The first thing that anxiety can do, like I mentioned before, is cause these somatic symptoms. And many people don't understand this, don't believe this, and medical professionals don't put any weight on this. In fact, they are not going to think about this, maybe at all, or only if they've ruled out everything else and then have come to the idea that, well, maybe you're anxious. Okay, but what I see in people is that anxiety causes a huge amount of symptoms, and we can be a better detective to understand that that's happening right off the bat without running to the doctor, without looking to get that checked out. So here's a couple of the other things that you're going to notice when you're having upticks of anxiety. You may notice a somatic sensation or a somatic symptom, like I mentioned, and that can be anything that you experience. The second thing is it comes with a mental anxiety. And mental anxiety is the thinking and the thoughts. We think of the word catastrophizing as a version of mental anxiety. Thinking for the worst, magnification, rumination, helplessness. What if thoughts? What if this gets worse? Worst case scenario, black and white thinking. All negative based, right? All fear based thinking, which is anxiety thinking. So it comes with a cognitive component. Now, if you notice that in yourself, that you're having all these sprouting, worrisome thoughts, we call these ants, automatic negative thoughts, they may be anxious thoughts. Can you catch them? Can you recognize them when they come? And I'm always telling people, look, you need to look for these things and be able to step out of what this. Let's say this is anxiety. You're over here now. Can you see it? Can you say, yeah, there's an anxious thought. Yeah, there's an anxious symptom, right? So we want to be able to have this ability to get the cortex working, the frontal lobe of the brain, to recognize and become aware of this anxiety, because anxiety is produced by the limbic brain, which is a different part of your brain, includes an area called the amygdala. And that's where anxiety comes from. And if we're not able to get the cortex working, we can be easily overwhelmed and controlled by it. And again, that's called the amygdala hijack. Okay, so we're looking for the anxious thoughts, the what if thoughts, catastrophizing thoughts, the worst case scenario thoughts, and be able to recognize those thoughts as anxious thoughts. Just saying that these are anxious thoughts, you've already stepped out of the anxiety right then and there. Otherwise, you are those thoughts. You are believing those thoughts. You're maybe producing more of those thoughts. Remember, we don't want the secondary or tertiary anxiety, meaning I don't want you guys to be consciously anxious. The unconscious brain will be anxious for a period of time until you learn to teach it that things are okay and that you're safe and secure. Because anxiety builds up this idea that there's danger or threat, and that you don't feel, that part of your brain does not feel safe and secure around whatever it might be. Okay, so the anxiety can produce somatic symptoms. It produces mental or cognitive thoughts. What else is anxiety going to produce that you want to look for? Well, it's going to produce a feeling in you, an emotional feeling of being anxious, on edge, scared, maybe even terrified, worried, concerned, careful, not sure, right? Unsure. That's all anxiety. That's the feeling of the anxiety. That's the emotional feeling that the symptom gives you or the thoughts give you. It comes with that feeling. So if you notice that feeling in yourself of feeling scared, of feeling nervous or worried or concerned, that's anxiety. Can you label that? And I'm going to make a distinction here in a moment about anxiety and fear, because they are the same energy in your body, but one is actually true danger and threat. That's fear, while anxiety is actually amplified false danger and threat. It's irrational or exaggerated in the brain. So in a way, we're not listening to it and acting off of it as if it was real fear. Because real fear, yes, you would listen to those thoughts. Yes, you would listen to the symptoms and go get them checked out and get treatment for them. Okay, if you fell on your wrist and you broke your wrist, you'd probably be scared. Oh my God, I think I broke my wrist. You would go and get it checked out, and that would be true. Okay, but this is not the same thing here. Okay, so you can have the feeling, the emotional feeling come in, and it's going to feel like fear. It's going to have the same energy as fear, but it's not true fear. Okay, but it wants you to act as if it is. Okay, and then we get to another component of anxiety is the action tendency or the behavioral tendency of what anxiety wants you to do, which is what? Avoid. Okay, fear avoidance, it's called. It's going to want you to pull back, withdraw, escape, flee. Think of the flight part of your nervous system, activating the flight, get me out of here, and possibly activating freeze. So if it's not activating flight, it may activate freeze, which is a shutdown mode, make you go home, stay put, stop, completely freeze up, completely shut down, avoid, go to bed. That's another thing that this can do, because remember, anxiety is protective. It is trying to send you a message through the symptom, through the thought, through the feeling, through the behavior that there's a lot of danger. There's a threat. There's something wrong. And I'm telling you right now that the brain gets it wrong. The brain many times gets it wrong or over exaggerates it, or it's working off an old memory because of something that happened to you before. Now the brain remembers and associates that now with things happening, and it reacts again as if it's dangerous. And again, most of the time it's not. So we have to make a distinction between true fear and what's called anxiety. They feel the same, they're acting the same, but one is true danger and one is false danger. Now, the other thing anxiety can do, in addition to what I mentioned in terms of the behavior of avoidance or shutting down, is it has this ability to generalize. It has this ability to expand and go into more things. Okay, so a lot of people tell me, I was not really that anxious before, Jim. Maybe a little bit. I've had some anxiety, but I was managing it. And after XYZ happened to me, anxiety shot up. Now I'm worried about everything. Now a lot of other things make me scared and worried and anxious. These things never bothered me before. And so this is what can happen. It's called generalized anxiety. Your system, your brain can start reacting to things that are completely normal, that are unrelated to what this is about. The brain learns to generalize, and it also expands, okay, in terms of what it will become anxious about. This can happen when you avoid too much. When you pull into avoidance and you pull back or freeze, what you're doing is teaching the brain that these things are dangerous, and therefore the brain will react with more anxiety next time. And that can grow and spread to more and more things. And what happens is your world shrinks down smaller and smaller and smaller. You're doing less and becoming more anxious. And that's because of the avoidance. And that's also because of the person believing the anxious thoughts and listening to the anxious feeling and thinking that it's real fear. And most importantly, and why everybody is here, believing and thinking this anxious symptom is dangerous and bad. Something is wrong, something I need to focus on, which is the last piece of anxiety, is called your attention. So anxiety has all these pieces I'm talking about. It's a very complex state of emotion. And if you think about it, it covers a lot of things. And so the last thing we're going to talk about is attention, which is called hypervigilance. That when you're anxious, another clue you are anxious is you're hypervigilant about these symptoms. You have a tendency to focus on them a lot. Your brain gets drawn into the symptom. It stays there. It's looking for it. You have a free moment, it goes and see what's going on. It has a hard time pulling away from it. Why would we do that? Because we think there's something wrong. At some level, the brain is concerned, is worried. And maybe it's learned even to do that. So that can become a bad habit for some people, this hypervigilance. But it is a sign of anxiety. So let's recap, everybody. Anxiety is one of the largest producers of harmless somatic symptoms in the body that we believe are something bad, something wrong, something to be concerned about, but they're absolutely not. Again, think of the panic attack. I say this all the time to my patients. People are probably tired of me saying this, but it's just the best example. If you have a panic attack and you go to the hospital right now and they check your heart out and they say, no, there's no heart issues, what are they going to do with you? You're going to go home on the same day. Why? You're having crazy symptoms. You're having very real symptoms. You're having distressing thoughts. You're not feeling well. You're feeling scared because it's harmless. It's not going to damage anything in you. There's no damage. Remember, anxiety is a protective response. It can cause very severe flight reactions or freeze reactions, which are these somatic symptoms. These are not dangerous and harmful. If we start believing they are, we create more anxiety. Can you see where we're going here? And then we get more anxious and more and more. And the whole thing is built on a false premise that there's something wrong when there's nothing wrong. So we have to make sure we are looking out for these clues of anxiety. Is your symptom a symptom of anxiety? It's very possible because, like I said, I would say it's the number one producer of somatic symptoms in the body that are not related to anything wrong with you, unexplained medical symptoms. And again, it comes not just with symptoms, but it comes with these other things I mentioned today, the mental component of the thinking of anxiety, the feeling component in yourself of feeling very anxious and worried and concerned, the action tendency to want to avoid and flee and pull back, withdraw, or freeze. And finally, the attention that the symptom garners from you, the hypervigilance it creates, is also a sign of anxiety. So if you're having some of these things, you're very likely having an anxiety symptom, which means the best news you're going to hear from me today, it means you're absolutely fine. It means you're absolutely okay. This is your brain creating this as a form of keeping you hypervigilant and aware and on edge, because that is going to keep you safe. It doesn't make sense on the surface, but it makes sense on a deep limbic brain level that this is a survival mechanism that we have developed either from childhood or certain traumatic experiences or bad experiences that the brain remembers because it's about survival. It'd rather miss the mark, it'd rather overshoot than have you be dead. But most of the time, it's way overshooting, way overreacting, getting it wrong. And so we have to be the one to decipher what this is. Is there true danger or threat? If there is, that's called fear. If not, it's anxiety. And it's nothing to worry about. And we'll have to go through some practices here to work with the things I mentioned. And that's what I do with people in session. Okay, once we know it's anxiety, we work on some of the strategies to work with these different pieces of anxiety I mentioned today, or the groups that go over anxiety, talk a lot about it. So it's really important that you guys can distinguish between, do you have anxiety symptoms, or are these actually medical symptoms of something wrong in your body? I don't know. It depends on your history, but a lot of people I see, these are anxiety symptoms. They're nothing to be worried about. There's nothing wrong with the person. They're persistent. They become chronic. They've gotten worse. They've spread, like I said, because that's what anxiety can do. And the last thing I'll say today about anxiety, from what we know from the neuroscience, is that it does not autocorrect. Okay, meaning if it gets kicked up here, that's where it is. It doesn't just go, it stays up a lot of times because it's of its protective nature. It's on alert now. It's more of an alarm system. So we have to do the work to get it to come down. We need to teach the brain that we're okay. We're safe. We're not under threat or danger, that this is a false alarm. Anxiety is a false alarm. Okay, everybody, if you want help in this, or you want to understand if your symptoms are driven by anxiety or possibly other things, emotions, reach out. This is what I do for a living now. You can find me at thepainpt.com. You can go to the website to sign up for individual or group sessions that are done weekly. Again, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I really want to spread the word about this. This is such a common thing. It's completely underdiagnosed. It's missed. And people don't believe that our brains have the power to create these symptoms and that these symptoms are protective, everybody. These symptoms are not dangerous. Although, think about anxiety. Anxiety is all about danger. So they feel very dangerous and threatening, but they're not. So thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.